Okay, so K2 SharePoint integration with a K2 workflow. Basically, what I did is I start off with a customized list that I kept the title. I created a new column called K2 hyperlink that I'm going to populate with a link to my smart forms environment. This is the workflow column. It's created automatically when you update or upload a workflow. You can get rid of it by customizing the view. I created 3 new columns to this one called employee, manager, and travel expense. These are populated from my smart form where I can create I could populate an employee from the picker control attached to an ID control. The travel expense is just a regular text field that I could freeform type. So I created all this. I went to site actions, site settings, and I had the K2 integration automatically create that smart object. I went to the K2 designer. My smart object was populated. I right-clicked and designed a view. Then I design a form. The thing that I like about designing the view this way is that the view will automatically populate the controls that I wanted. I made the ID, I like to display the ID because it's something that somebody can reference if they're having a problem with something. I made it so that this ID was just display only. I had the title as display only. I don't think you may or may not want them to manually type something in there. You can automatically, if something like, let's say, a picker control changes, you can update the title to say, like I did, is when the picker control changes, I said transfer data to that title to say travel request for this control, and it just makes things a little bit easier on the user so that they don't have to fill out every control in your view. When this view is initialized, it's going to automatically, I'm going to transfer the data, I'm going to automatically populate the picker control, and then I'm going to automatically populate the manager control with the system values of current user. Manager is another environmental field. The TRID, basically what I did is, I like to do this, is I create a parameter on the view level, and I will create the ID in relation to what I'm doing. So this is a dummy travel request. I created a travel request ID with a data type of number, and that allows me to kind of manipulate the rules to say when the view is initialized, if it's specified, then I want to load the number that you're specifying, and I'll kind of get at that. If it isn't, then I'm just creating a brand new travel request, and it doesn't fire any events under there. So what I'm doing here is if the TRID is specified, then I'm firing a load event from my SharePoint list. So this relates to the ID coming in, and then your output mappings will map. So right now I'm mapping to that travel request list, and then I have all these items that I could potentially load in. So let's say I've created SharePoint list item number 4 with the ID of 4. I'm pulling the ID of 4 here, and then I'm mapping all of 4's relevant data into those controls. So I like to do this, and then I like to build this all on the view level. I like to load as much control, put as much control on the view level as possible, so that when the form is loaded, I kind of do the same thing. I have a parameter of, like, you have to create, it has to be a little bit different. So like this one's TR form ID, it can't match. The parameter names can't match. So when this is rendered, I will generally pass into my views, because what will happen is I'll have views related to, like, maybe attachments. I can load in something from multiple areas. I can load in something from SQL. I can load in something from another list. And so what I do is when this form is initialized, I kind of do the same thing. I just transfer the data down to, I take the parameter that's coming in and I pass it down to that view, so that I don't really have to do anything at this level. It's all handled from the view level, so that everything will be populated. Once all this was created, I went over to the K2 Studio and I created a really simple workflow that said, let's see, so process wizard, SharePoint workflow integration, I dropped it onto the start, and basically all it did was it took me through a wizard where I am interfacing with a SharePoint list or library, and then I pointed to the site that I'm working with, and then the list that I'm working with is a customized list that I built. This is all default, this is fine. I don't need to do any metadata mapping. The folio is a title that you can later, if you populate it with dynamic data, you can go to your, if you have to troubleshoot an individual item, you can go over to your workspace and see the folio is just the title. So let's say you had a title of user such and such created a travel request. You can say, okay, I see that one right here, and I can look at it through the workspace. So that first part was the integration from SharePoint, and then I created a little default activity. You can create them by just creating a little up arrow. And then I drug a line down to this. If you right click and draw, you can draw lines from one event to the next. And then I went into activity event wizards, I'm sorry, and then SharePoint, and then what I'm doing is I'm doing something against the SharePoint list. So I drug the SharePoint list items over and I dropped it in here. This is the wizard you'll see. I kept the name as fine from content field. And then what I did is the content field is essentially already built in here. It just allows the pre-population of some of the data from that SharePoint list. So you don't have to know too much about this. This is just the workflow integration process. I just grabbed this and dropped it in there, and it allows for the system to see some of the content that it's going to update. And then this is where I updated the hyperlink. You can manually type your runtime environment, and this is gotten from your so this I got from my form. If I run with parameters, I could put a number in there just to see what this will populate as, and then I can grab that and copy it. I don't need the 1 at the end, I just needed some dummy number in there so I could see how it populates that. So I pasted that in here, and then at the end I'm looking for, right after that, I got rid of that 1, and then right after that I'm populating I'm firing a method against a metadata method against my ID. So what I'm trying to do is just grab the ID in relation to the item that I'm creating. So if I create a new item and it happens to be number 4, I just want that to be part of that link. So in this part I can open the context browser again, and I'm just drilling down into my XML fields that are available for this guy. So at the end again, after that equal sign, I just drug that ID over. Down here is what's going to be, the description's what's going to be on your SharePoint list. It could be anything in relation to whatever project you're creating. I built all that out, and that's the only thing I really wanted to update. What's cool about this is you can update if your status is in updating or approved. You can also update any of those types of data or columns, and that's basically all I did. I published that out to, when you publish it, it's all already tied into your list, so it automatically knows where to go. And if I come out to my list and I create a new item, I'm going to leave hyperlink alone. I'm going to say something like, so this is going to automatically fire that workflow that I have in progress. I'm going to refresh it. So it doesn't take very long. There's not too much there. So if I click on that K2 link, it's going to populate with the ID in relation to what I did. It automatically created my title form, or it overrode my title. I may have written one in there, but that all is from the workflow, and it populated all the items from the SharePoint list. So this is it in a nutshell. The tricky parts would be the parameters, are something you're going to have to get used to. It allows for the rendering and the updating of in-progress smart forms, and allows you to fire events. Mostly I like it because you can have an ID that's related to that smart forms event, and then you can kind of control your rules to kind of wrap around that. But if you have more questions about that, just let me know.